I have been working in Florida real estate for over 2 decades. I have helped hundreds of buyers close on properties across this state, from first-time home buyers in Orlando to retirees purchasing their forever home on the Gulf Coast. And in all of that time, the single most consistent pattern I have seen is this: buyers who get into financial trouble in Florida almost never got there because they overpaid for the home. They got there because they underestimated what it cost to own the home. The mortgage calculator told them one number, reality delivered another, and the gap between those two numbers across 5 specific cost categories that almost nobody talks about clearly before closing is the gap that turns a well-planned Florida move into a financial stress test within the first 18 months. I am going to close that gap for you today. 5 hidden costs, specific dollar amounts, the mechanics behind each one, and the questions you need to ask before you sign anything. If you are moving to Florida in 2026, or even seriously thinking about it, this is the conversation your real estate agent should have had with you already. If they haven't, pay close attention. The cost that hides in plain sight on the listing sheet. The first hidden cost is the one I see blindside buyers more consistently than any other because it is technically visible on every listing, and buyers still miss it every single time. Florida's Save Our Homes cap is one of the most powerful homeowner protections in the country. Once you establish a homestead exemption on a Florida primary residence, the assessed value, the value the government uses to calculate your annual tax bill, can only increase by a maximum of 3% per year, regardless of how fast the market rises. For a long-term Florida homeowner who bought in 2010, 2012, or even 2015, that cap has been compounding for a decade or more. Their assessed value is dramatically lower than current market value. Their tax bill reflects that. The moment that home is sold, the cap disappears entirely. The new buyer's assessed value is reset to current market value on January 1st of the year following the purchase. The new buyer then files for their own homestead exemption, the standard $50,000 reduction, and their Save Our Homes clock starts over at 0. Here's what that means in dollar terms, and I want to be precise about this because I have watched this scenario play out in my practice more times than I can count. Meet Thomas and Linda. They are moving from Michigan to a home in Sarasota County. The listing shows the current owner's annual property tax bill, $3,200. The home is listed at $485,000. Thomas runs the numbers in his head. $3,200 per year, $267 per month. That fits the budget comfortably. Here's what Thomas did not run. The current owner bought that home in 2008 for $290,000. The Save Our Homes cap has held the assessed value to approximately $385,000, despite the current market value being $485,000. At Sarasota County's effective rate of approximately 1%, the current owner pays taxes on $385,000 minus a $50,000 homestead exemption, so $335,000, which produces that $3,200 annual bill. Thomas and Linda's assessment resets to $485,000. After the $50,000 homestead exemption, their taxable value is $435,000. At the same 1% effective rate, $4,350 per year. That is $1,150 more annually than the prior owner, $96 more per month, on a number Thomas thought he already understood. In markets where the prior owner has held for 15 or 20 years, the reset is far more dramatic. I have seen buyers discover after closing that their actual tax bill was 60% to 80% higher than the number on the listing sheet. That is not a rounding error. That is a budget restructuring event. What we call the hidden tax utility cliff in Florida homeownership is precisely this reset dynamic you close on your dream home in Sarasota or Orlando, and the property taxes seem incredibly low on the listing sheet because the previous owner lived there for 20 years and their tax bill reflects decades of capped assessments. The fix is simple and takes 10 minutes. Go to the county property appraiser's website before you make an offer. Look up the current assessed value and the current market value. Calculate what your tax bill will be after the reset using the county's effective rate, minus your $50,000 homestead exemption. That is your actual number. Build the budget around that number, not the prior owner's bill. The homestead exemption, once established, caps your assessed value increases at 3% annually or the consumer price index, whichever is lower, but that protection only kicks in after your first full year of ownership. In year 1, you are fully exposed to market value assessment with no cap protection whatsoever. The line item that overrides everything else in the budget. If the property tax reset is the hidden cost that surprises buyers intellectually, homeowners insurance is the one that surprises them financially because the numbers have moved so fast and so far in the last 4 years that even buyers who did their research in 2022 are working from outdated assumptions. Florida homeowners insurance premiums have gone from an average of $4,200 in 2020 to over $14,200 in 2026, an increase of approximately $10,000 per year in a single cost category. That $10,000 incremental annual cost on Florida's average disposable income represents 15% of the average Floridian's entire discretionary budget. On a fixed retirement income, the math is even more punishing. Insurance deserves its own paragraph because it continues to surprise buyers more than any other cost. The scenario plays out frequently. A buyer finds a home they love, the purchase price fits the budget, the neighborhood feels right, everything looks great, and then the insurance quotes come in and change the entire calculation. This isn't hypothetical. It's a common recurring experience for Gulf Coast buyers in 2026. Let me break down the specific factors that determine where your insurance premium lands because Florida insurance is expensive is not actionable. Understanding the levers is: Factor 1. Location and coastal proximity. Moving 10 miles inland might reduce your insurance costs by 30 to 40%. Properties in lower flood zones cost substantially less to insure. A home in Naples on the water and a home in Naples 10 miles inland are in completely different insurance pricing tiers. The lifestyle difference is meaningful. The financial difference is substantial. I have had clients save $4,000 to $6,000 per year in annual premiums by shifting their search criteria 5 to 8 miles inland from their original target. Factor 2. Construction year and roof condition. Florida insurers price aggressively on construction age and roof type. Florida insurance projects to remain 3 to 4 times the national average in 2026, requiring specific budget allocation for wind mitigation. A home built after 2002 to Florida's post-Andrew building code, with a hip roof and recent shingle replacement, will be priced dramatically differently than a pre-2002 flat roof home in the same zip code. The wind mitigation inspection, which typically costs $150 to $200, can document your home's specific construction features and qualify you for discounts that can run $1,500 to $3,500 per year off your premium. Factor 3. Hurricane deductibles. Hurricane deductibles are a feature of Florida home insurance. A special deductible, usually 2% to 5% of your dwelling coverage, that you pay if a hurricane causes damage. That can mean paying several $1,000s out of pocket before insurance kicks in for hurricane damage. On a $400,000 dwelling, a 2% hurricane deductible is $8,000 out of pocket before your policy pays a single dollar toward hurricane damage. A 5% deductible is $20,000. These numbers are buried in the declarations page of the policy. They are not in the listing. They are not in the mortgage calculator, and they represent a financial exposure that most buyers have not budgeted for. Factor 4. Flood insurance. The policy most buyers don't realize they need. Standard homeowners policies in Florida do not cover flood damage. Flood insurance is a separate policy, available through FEMA's National Flood Insurance Program or through private flood carriers. If your property is in a FEMA-designated special flood hazard area, your lender will require it. But significant flood events in Florida consistently damage properties that are not in mandatory flood zones. They simply aren't in a required zone, which means no lender-mandated coverage, which means many homeowners discover they're uninsured for flood only after the water has already entered the house. The practical budget number for Florida homeowners insurance in 2026, average homeowners insurance premiums for mortgaged homes in 2026 are expected to range from $2,390 to $2,500 per year across the state, but coastal or older homes may see much higher rates. Newer inland homes can qualify for the lower end of the spectrum. For coastal properties and older construction, $8,000 to $15,000 per year is not an outlier. It is the baseline. Get the insurance quote before you make an offer. Not after closing. Before the offer. It takes 48 hours, and it is the most important piece of financial due diligence in a Florida real estate transaction in 2026. The monthly bill you agreed to without reading the fine print. Florida is a community living state. The vast majority of new construction and most of the established retirement communities that attract the bulk of relocating buyers are governed by a homeowners association, and many of the larger master plan developments carry a second assessment layer called a community development district fee that most buyers don't understand until they receive their first property tax bill. Let me break down both. HOA fees in 2026 and late 2025. Typical HOA fees for Florida condos and townhomes are roughly $400 to $600 per month. The increase of HOA fees results from multiple factors, including the rise of insurance premiums, new safety regulations, and inflation across all parts of the state. For single-family homes in planned communities, average monthly HOA fees are about $175 in 2026, while condos in major metro areas often push $350 to $700 per month. These numbers are the baseline, the regular monthly assessment you see in the listing. What the listing does not show you is the reserve funding status of the association and the special assessment exposure that comes with it. Post-Surfside legislation has fundamentally changed the reserve funding requirements for Florida condo associations. Buildings 3 stories or higher must now undergo mandatory structural inspections and maintain fully funded reserves for critical components, roofs, plumbing, structural elements. Associations that spent years waiving reserve contributions are now being forced to catch up all at once. The mechanism for that catch-up is a special assessment, a one-time charge levied against every unit owner with limited advance notice that can run $15,000, $40,000, or in documented cases over $100,000 per unit. I have personally worked with buyers who closed on a Florida condo and received a special assessment notice within 6 months for amounts that rivaled their annual income. This is not a theoretical risk in 2026. It is a documented recurring reality in Florida's condo market. Before you close on any Florida condo, request the most recent reserve study. Ask what percentage of required reserves are currently funded. Ask whether any special assessments have been issued in the last 5 years. Ask who insures the building and what the current premium is. These are standard due diligence questions that your attorney should be asking on your behalf, and if they aren't, you need a different attorney. CDD fees. The second assessment layer. Many newer, large-scale master plan communities in Florida have a community development district fee. A CDD fee transfers the financial cost of building out the infrastructure and amenities of a community from the developer to the homeowners. This is achieved through a special municipal bond, typically between 20 and 30 years, where residents within a CDD community are levied this fee annually through their property tax bill. Some communities may have both an HOA fee and a CDD fee. CDD fees in Florida run from approximately $800 to $3,000 per year, depending on the community and the remaining term on the underlying bond. They appear as a non-ad valorem assessment on your property tax bill, which means they survive even if you successfully protest your property tax assessment. They are also non-dischargeable in bankruptcy in most circumstances, and they do not disappear when the community is built out. They continue until the bond matures. The practical due diligence asks the listing agent directly whether the property is subject to a CDD. If yes, obtain the current annual CDD assessment amount and the remaining term on the bond. Add that number to your monthly carrying cost calculation. I have seen buyers walk away from what looked like an excellent price point after discovering that the CDD added $200 to $250 per month in non-optional carrying costs that were not visible in the listing price. The maintenance cost nobody puts in the brochure. Florida's climate is exceptional for outdoor living. It is brutal for mechanical systems, and the replacement cycle for the equipment that makes a Florida home livable. The air conditioning system, the roof, the water heater, the plumbing is dramatically compressed compared to what buyers from northern states are accustomed to. In northern states, an HVAC system might last 20 to 25 years. In Florida, the average lifespan drops to 10 to 12 years. Your air conditioner runs almost year-round. This constant operation leads to higher electricity bills and frequent replacement costs. Buyers should check the age of the HVAC unit immediately. If the unit is over 8 years old, budget for a replacement in the near future. A new system for a 2,000 square foot home costs between $7,000 and $10,000 as of early 2026. In my practice, I advise every buyer to treat an HVAC unit over 8 years old as a near-term capital expenditure, not a contingency. Budget it before closing, not after. A $7,000 to $10,000 HVAC replacement in the first 18 months of ownership is not a surprise. It is a near certainty, and it should be reflected in your offer price or your reserve fund before the ink is dry. Roofs in Florida's climate carry their own accelerated replacement timeline. Florida's intense UV exposure, high humidity, hurricane wind exposure, and the requirement that most Florida insurers and mortgage lenders require a roof with significant remaining life creates a specific dynamic. A roof approaching 15 years of age in Florida will begin to trigger insurance non-renewal or rate surcharges from most carriers, and a roof over 20 years old may make the home effectively uninsurable through the private market. Before any Florida purchase, obtain the age of the roof in writing. If it is over 12 years old, get an independent roof inspection. If it is over 15 years old, get a roofing contractor's replacement estimate and build that cost into your negotiating position. A $15,000 to $20,000 roof replacement that you discover 6 months after closing, or that your insurer flags as a condition of coverage renewal, is a cost that changes the financial calculus of the purchase entirely. The monthly bill that never goes down in the summer. The fifth hidden cost is the one that catches buyers off guard precisely because it seems so mundane until the first full Florida summer hits and the electricity bill arrives. Florida's climate requires year-round air conditioning. This is not a preference. It is a medical and practical necessity for the months between May and October in most of the state and year-round in South Florida. The consequence is an electricity consumption profile that is fundamentally different from what most relocating buyers are accustomed to. Florida does not operate on a deregulated electricity market the way Texas does. Florida Power Light, Duke Energy Florida, Tampa Electric, and a handful of smaller utilities serve the state under a regulated model, meaning you cannot shop rates, cannot lock in a fixed-rate contract with an alternative provider, and are exposed to whatever rate increases the Florida Public Service Commission approves. FPL and Duke Energy Florida have both had rate increase filings approved in recent years, with additional filings pending. The practical numbers. A typical Florida retirement household spends $490 to $640 per month on combined utilities, electricity, water, sewer, and internet, with electricity alone averaging $130 to $200 per month during peak summer months. For a buyer coming from a northern state where the summer electricity bill might run $80 to $120 per month, the Florida summer bill is a genuinely disorienting number the first time it arrives. Pool ownership adds another layer. Roughly half of Florida single-family homes with listing prices above $350,000 include a pool. Pools are a genuine quality-of-life asset in Florida's climate, but they carry specific ongoing costs that most buyers underestimate. Pool pump electricity consumption can add $50 to $100 per month to the electric bill. Pool chemical and service costs for a basic monthly maintenance contract run $100 to $200 per month, depending on pool size and service level. Pool equipment, pumps, heaters, salt systems, automation carries its own replacement cycle that intersects with Florida's climate exposure. One specific item that catches relocating buyers. Florida's municipal utility structures often include base facility charges, storm recovery charges, and infrastructure assessment fees that appear on utility bills separately from the consumption charges. These are fixed monthly costs that do not vary with usage, meaning they do not go down when you travel, when the weather cools, or when you install energy-efficient appliances. A buyer who calls the utility company to ask about average monthly bills may receive a number that does not include all of these fixed charges. Always ask for the fully loaded bill, every line item for the specific address you are considering. The combined utilities number for budget planning $490 to $640 per month for a standard retirement household in a non-coastal Florida market, with coastal and South Florida properties running $560 to $720. This number belongs in your monthly carrying cost calculation. It belongs on the same line as the mortgage and the insurance, not as an afterthought. Let me give you the summary that your real estate agent should have printed out and handed to you the first time you walk through a Florida property. 5 costs. 5 real numbers, all of them available before you sign anything if you know where to look. Property tax reset. Verify on the county appraiser's website. Calculate your actual post-reset bill, not the prior owner's. Homeowners insurance. Get the quote before the offer, specifically for your property address, your construction year, your roof age, and your coastal exposure zone. HO and CDD fees. Read the financials, not the listing description. Request the reserve study and the most recent meeting minutes. Ask about special assessments and building insurance carrier status. HVAC and infrastructure replacement cycle. Get the equipment ages in writing. Build replacement costs into your offer price or your first-year reserve fund. Utilities. Call the utility company. Ask for the fully loaded bill history, every line item for the specific address, for at least the last 12 months. Florida in 2026 still works, and works well for buyers who go in with a complete financial picture. The total cost of ownership for a well-chosen Florida property run correctly is often significantly lower than the comparable lifestyle in California, New York, or the Northeast. The zero income tax advantage is real. The retirement infrastructure is unmatched. The healthcare access in the major metros is genuine. But the buyers who struggle are the ones who ran the mortgage and stopped there. Run all 5 costs. Make your decision on the full number, not the headline.